I am in a reading slump. I've got about 20 or so books next to me that I've started maybe 40 or 50 pages of, 60 pages, and then I move on to the next book. Not that I don't like any of them, it's just I'm in one of those slumps where I can't seem to finish a book. I think the last video that I posted of a book review was back in December, so it's been almost 3 months since I've read a book. I've just been really busy with everyday life stuff and work, and but we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled programming very soon. So I just thought I would take a little bit of time just to kind of go over the books that I've been into lately and just share them with you, kind of get back in the swing of things. So there's four main ones that I'm reading right now. The one that I'm going to finish first, I think, is The Lake by Natasha Preston. This one was just released about a week ago, March 2nd. I always really enjoy reading Natasha Preston's books. They're like, young adult, thriller, suspense. Not all of them are 4s and 5s. A few of them are 2s and 3s that I've reviewed on this channel, but nonetheless, I always enjoy picking up her newest one because she has an incredible work ethic to be able to. It seems like she's releasing one book every year, and this one I'm really digging the setting so far. I'm about I want to say like 60 pages in, no 70, and it's people visiting a lake, and then there might be like a killer on the loose, that type of thing. So this one I'm enjoying the setting so far. The next one is, I just found out about this series. It's called A Whole New World, and this author Liz Braswell, she takes it's part of a series called A Twisted Tale, and she takes like classic Disney stories and puts a twist on them. So, for example, this one at the top, it says, "What if Aladdin had never found the lamp?" So, and based on the back of it, it says, Jafar attempts to break the laws of magic and gain control over love and deaths. Soon, Aladdin and the deposed Princess Jasmine must unite the people of Agrabah in rebellion to stop the power-mad ruler threatening to tear the kingdom apart. So it says, "This isn't the story you already know. This is a story about power, about revolutionaries, and about love, and about one moment changing everything." So there's a whole series about these, like, what if Sleeping Beauty never woke up? What if Belle's mother cursed the beast? So there's just a bunch of these books, and they're pretty good size. They're like novels, like 300, 400 pages long, putting classic twists, putting twists on classic Disney stories. So that one, I really like Aladdin. That's one of my favorite Disney movies, and thought that would be a cool twist to read about. The next one is, I honestly found this one on the shelf, and it drew me in because of the artwork. I really love this pastel color type of artwork to it. It's a collection of science fiction short stories by James Tiptree Jr. That's actually the pen name. It's actually a woman named Alice B. Sheldon. So she wrote under a pseudonym name. And what I'm really noticing about when I read science fiction is that I really enjoy having small snippets and like short stories and of science fiction. I do like science fiction novels too, but of the short story science fiction novels that I have been reading, I'm really enjoying little snippets of it. You get a little piece of a universe, and you can kind of fill in the extra. You can kind of use your imagination to fill things in, kind of similar to like maybe like a coloring book where there's an outline and then you have to color in all of the different lines yourself. And I'm actually going to be doing a video on this first short story that was in here because that really intrigued me. And so this is a collection of science fiction stories by her, short stories, but also there's some nonfiction in there, like afterwards, kind of explaining some of the stories in the background. And I don't read a whole lot of nonfiction. I might skip that section of the book because nonfiction It's pretty rare that I read nonfiction other than like science books, but this one, if you're thinking about science fiction, you should check this one out. And then the next one, I don't have the jacket. I'm terrible at keeping these on. I don't read with the jackets on, but I always misplace them somehow. But Christopher Paolini, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. This is his, in his words, his first venture into like adult novels. This one is science fiction. It's like 900 pages long. It doesn't look like it, but it's pretty lengthy. He's also the author of the Aragon series, which I really enjoyed back when they came out. I actually never finished the series. I read the first 3 and then half of the 4th one, and I never finished it. But so far, what I'm reading of this sci-fi, adult sci-fi, I'm enjoying. And I really appreciate the fact that he puts like maps and stuff in his books. Like when he did his fantasy series, Aragon, he would put a map of the land that they live in, Elegiza, I think it's pronounced. And here there's like a kind of like a star map. It's not as detailed as some of his like fantasy stuff, but I always appreciate that he takes the time to go into that type of thing. So what do we have next? Stormfront by Jim Butcher. I've been seeing this one pop up just whenever I go to the bookstore, and I see it online and I see it recommended by people. It's like it's a sci-fi fantasy, but it's like a detective story. He's a wizard he's a detective wizard trying to catch like murderers and like vampires and werewolves and like that type of thing. So that was really intriguing to me. So I thought I'd pick that one up. This one, The Shadow of What Was Lost. I mean, this thing is like enormous, but it caught my eye because on the front it says, "Love the Wheel of Time. This is about to become your favorite new series." I've never read The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, though I have picked it up in my hands quite a few times when I've gone to the bookstore, but just never really pulled the trigger on buying it. And although it is on my list, there's like, I want to say like 13 books in the series. So I just never was like, well, that might be a project in the future, because 13 books and they're all almost like as big as this. That's enormous. But I'm liking this one so far. I'm only like 40 or 50 pages in, so I haven't gotten too far into it, but it's definitely pretty magic heavy. They started off really quick they point that out pretty quickly. So I like what I've read so far. And I really like kind of like the simplicity of the artwork. It's black and gray, and then the orange sun probably is what that is. So that's cool. I always appreciate good artwork. This one is a nonfiction that I started reading a while ago. 3 Roads to Quantum Gravity by Elise Smolin. Like I said earlier, typically when I read nonfiction, it's usually some kind of science book. And from what I remember, I think this is about so in science, there is quantum physics, which is like the study of very small things like subatomic particles and how particles can pop into and out of existence seemingly randomly. And you have Einstein's general theory of relativity, which describes gravity and how space and time and matter, behave around each other. Those two things work great separately, but when you try to combine them, the smaller you get, the more that they conflict with each other, and they don't work together well at all. So this quantum gravity is an attempt by scientists to try to bridge the gap between quantum physics and gravity. So trying to bridge the gap between the small and the large. This one, Blindness by Jose Saramago, is like, I don't know if you want to call it sci-fi, I guess it would be, but in a town or in a city people start all of a sudden going blind. They see whiteness everywhere, and it seems to be catchy. So if someone goes blind and you were around them, a day later you would go blind, and it's kind of like a virus or something. But I haven't gotten too far into that one yet. They're trying to quarantine all the people that have gone blind and are trying to take every precaution to figure out what this might be. What's really interesting about this one is the way that it's written, like dialogue wise. There's no quotation marks, and it kind of feels like a bunch of like run-on sentences. And it, in a way, it's not my favorite way to read dialogue, but in a way it does give the book a little bit of momentum. It kind of pushes things forward, and it's just a unique way of writing. I wouldn't want to read books like that all the time, but every once in a while it's cool. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This one's kind of been on my list for a while, and I finally bought this. I think it's some kind of like heist. It's a duology, which is, I don't think I've ever read anything like that, where instead of 3 books, there's only 2 in the series. It says 6 dangerous outcasts, 1 impossible heist. Young adult series. I don't think I've ever read a book that has like heists in it. I like those types of movies, but I know that this one's really popular, and I'm going to look forward to reading more of that one. And I know this one's really popular too. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Something about people having powers, and everybody's like accounted for who has powers or something like that. And depending on what kind of power you have, it like the more higher royalty has more power, or like different powers or something like that. And I think this lead character discovers that she has powers that she didn't know about, which is like really dangerous, because they don't want people to rise up and realize that they made a mistake, where I think it was like they discovered that she has powers, and they're like, oh yeah, she's like a long lost relative of us. Yeah. Like welcome to the family. Like, we didn't realize you were gone all those years, like she's like really poor. And, if people found out that someone that's like low class that can have powers and might have the ability to rise up, it would stir like revolution and, that type of thing. So I liked what I've been reading so far, that one. Renegades, not much to say about this one other than it has to do with like superheroes and villains. I always appreciate a good superhero story. That's cool. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is a dystopian where I love dystopian stories. This one this is like the second or third time I'm trying to read it. I started this one a long time ago, and just something about it couldn't grip me. It didn't grip me all the way. And I started this one again recently, and I think I'm almost 70 pages in, and I'm kind of getting that same feeling where for some reason I'm just not grasping it, but I'm going to stick with it this time. I promise I'm going to finish this one. It's like people are controlled, like population control, like people are almost like grown and conditioned into thinking a certain way. And there's different, I guess, like class systems. I don't think class is the right word, but people who are genetically engineered, who are genetically engineered to be smarter or dumber than other people, and depending on how you're engineered, is you get they choose like what type of career and what your life is going to be, basically. And everybody shares everybody in terms of sex and like relationships. So from what I'm gathering, the very idea of like turning someone down for a date or sex is like profane. Like they don't like that. Oh, this is a good one. Queen's Gambit. I didn't even know that this was a book. I watched the Netflix series, which was phenomenal, fantastic series. and I really want to watch it again. And I just had no idea that so much could go into chess, different, names of moves, and here's what you should do here, and here's how to open, and here's what you can do. So once I finished the series, the Netflix series, I went out and got the book, and it's pretty close to the series so far. So I'm enjoying that one. City of Brass, young adult fantasy, magic, genies. I don't really remember much about this one because it's been a minute since I've picked this one up, but I really love the artwork. The first time I saw this series on the shelf was when The Kingdom of Copper, which is the second book, came out. And I just love the artwork, and something like, if you can have good artwork that makes me want to pick your book up, then that's awesome. So we're going to continue with that one. This one is another collection of like sci-fi fantasy kind of. This was actually it's a collection of like short stories, and this is actually recommended to me by one of my viewers, because he's one of the authors in here. So that first guy, C. Scott Davis, recommended it, and I read the first couple. I really liked Mr. Davis's stories. I'm about 80 pages in. I think there's only one or two by him so far at the beginning, but I really, Mr. Davis, thank you for recommending this one to me, because I'm enjoying it so far. Critical Mass and Other Stories is what it's called. Twilight, the graphic novel. I like Twilight. I'm a Twilight fan. I read all the books. I read Midnight Sun. I watched the movies like countless times. I really enjoy it. So I wanted to pick up the graphic novel, and I've been kind of, skimming through it. Only complaint I have about this one is that like it's not in like color, like if it was like a paperback, if you're reading, say, like manga in a paperback, and it's just, thin paper, like they don't really print it in color. This is like the type of like that like laminated glossy paper to it, and it's like black and white, or like there's like a hint of color, and like some of the important pages kind of have a little bit of color in there. And while I do appreciate that type of art choice and art style and art decision where you put important things in color, I feel like it would have been a lot more vibrant and better if they could have had the whole book like this cover where it's actually in color. I haven't seen any volume 2, 3, or 4 yet. I think volume 1 might be the only one that exists. I haven't done a lot of research into that, but let me know if there's other ones, because I would like to pick those up too. Because I like graphic novel reimaginings. That's cool. Like Dune came out with a graphic novel, and I do plan to pick up that one too. Left Behind. It's about the rapture, or by I can't remember their first names, but Leigh and Jenkins. There's 2 authors. Left Behind is about the rapture and what happens when God chooses to bring all of the chosen people into heaven, and then this follows all the people that have been left behind on earth. What happens during and after and during the apocalypse of when the world ends. Red Rising, by Pierce Brown. This one is also kind of like a class system one where red I don't want to say red people, but like your I guess class color is red, so you wear red. Are like the poorest, and then like gold I think is the richest, and like royalty basically. They're colonizing Mars, and the red people are like diggers. I think I think only the red people are diggers, but has to do with the lead character trying to get out of that restriction and try to, rise up against injustice, that like in oppression, like that type of thing. This one I'm really enjoying. A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. I think it was recommended to me by someone on this channel about Joe Abercrombie, and this one I'm very impressed by the maturity of the writing. It's kind of like a slow burn book, and I do enjoy that where an author takes his time to really flesh out all of the details of the world that these people are living in. And this one has to do with a lot of like politics and dialogue and discussions, and it's not all just people shooting magic everywhere and fighting with swords. Well, there is a little bit of elements of that. I kind of like that, where it's like sprinkled in, where although it's in a fantasy world, a lot of it has to do with human relationships and relationships between characters and overarching, storylines, stuff like that. The last two, The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. Well, let me start with this one. The Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern. I already reviewed this on my channel. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but for some reason I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I'm going to do a video just explaining why I want to reread this, because I think I was looking at it and approaching it the wrong way. I was assuming that the story was about Zachary, who's our protagonist, but I don't think it's Zachary's story. I think the story is, or like the protagonist in a sense is the Starless Sea, and Zachary is just a vessel to bring us to the Starless Sea and to imagine what it was like to live in and around this Starless Sea and live in a world that is magical and is ancient and had so much power at one time, and now it's kind of in ruins. But I think when I was reading it in terms of like Zachary's story, but I don't think the story itself, Zachary's story, was as important as the Starless Sea itself, because I thought Zachary's story was kind of uninteresting and Zachary himself as a character was kind of boring. But the main thing that brought me back to reading this was just the imagery that Aaron Morgenstern was able to portray, and all of like those in-between stories of what happens during the Starless Sea, like in between Zachary's story. And that's something I just couldn't get out of my head, and I wanted to read it again with like fresh eyes in an attempt to try to go into it with like a different point of view. So then that leaves us with The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. So I read The Starless Sea first. This was her first book. That was her second. And right away I can tell the difference in the writing. This one seems, I want to say, simpler writing, more straightforward, whereas that one's very like grandiose and very detail oriented. This one isn't, but I'm still enjoying what I'm reading of this one, where like a circus comes at night, and without any warning or anything, and there's magic and betrayal and like that type of thing. So just wanted to make this video just to kind of get back in the swing of things and show that I am making progress with reading, though it's not as often as it once was, but I promise that I'm still reading and thinking about, reviews and how I can approach them. But does this mean that I'm going to stop buying books? No. My collection will keep growing. I almost have too many right now. Sometimes they're like scattered on the ground, and my bookshelf you can't see behind me, but like you have slots for books, and then like the space in front of the books are kind of, going vertically, stacking vertically like that. But thanks for watching, and let me know what you've been reading lately, and if this ever happens to you. Reading slumps, they happen to me every once in a while. Typically it's when I get busy with, everyday life stuff. But just be on the lookout for more videos in the future. See you later. Thanks.